Hey guys, I'm Nidoking bringing you the finale of Rayman, with my final special guest.
I'm SirSamVimes.
Now, does this look at all familiar to you, sir?
Not in the slightest.
I figured the best place to finish this game was to start at the beginning, but this is the PC version.
With a shiny new cutscene?
Well, I'm not sure it's really shiny, but it's definitely new. And it's entirely skippable, unlike most of the stuff that happens at the beginning of the PlayStation version.
Yes, I remember having to deal with a bunch of unskippable titles in the Game Boy Advance version.
But we get right into the game, and we get to have an animated loading screen.
It's not really animated, it just sort of circles around and then...
Yeah, well, it's the same picture, but instead of just sitting there not doing anything, it'll swirl around or curl up into a ball and bounce off the screen or roll up like wallpaper.
So basically all the transitions in Windows Movie Maker.
Yeah, I suppose that's probably where they got them. Well, I don't know if Windows Movie Maker existed back when they made this game. The first scene is identical to the PlayStation version, but listen carefully. You get no fanfare, and the music plays right through the transition.
I prefer it that way, I think.
Yeah, it definitely sounds a lot cleaner.
I mean, the fanfare is pretty nice, but I just prefer it with the clear yeah.
I'm not even sure I'd agree that the fanfare was nice. I think it annoyed me. I almost didn't want to complete levels just so I didn't have to hear it. And I'm gonna skip actually playing the Ting Magician's game because you've already seen it, but you definitely want to see how it ends. You actually got Rayman holding a trophy.
And someone yelling perfect.
Hey Rayman, have a trophy!
So is that a Ting Magician's voice?
Yeah, I think so. I think that was the Ting Magician saying perfect. But there's one other thing that he'll say if you don't have enough tings to pay him, so I'm just gonna pop into the game a couple times to use up all my tings.
And make him rich?
The sacrifices I make for my art. So, all that I've heard for that little sound clip. And here's something that a lot of people requested. That's what happens if you hit the run button before you learn to run.
I remember having a lot of fun using that.
But it only works on that one type of enemy.
I kinda wish that they would have another button which let you still do that after you could run.
It's just really not that practical. So you notice that Batilla doesn't make any sound when she talks, and all of her text is the same green color.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff which is different to the PlayStation version looks a lot similar to the Game Boy Advance version.
I would expect so. The PlayStation version came out first, and it was originally designed for the Super NES, and then for the CD add-on to the Super NES. You might notice I got that trophy in the PlayStation version and it made a cage appear. This version, no cage. So the trick is you actually have to get this plum across the water in this version. And I managed to do it on my first try.
It's nice that they actually make it worth throwing across now.
Yeah, a lot of the things that I did in the PlayStation version that were just extras, you actually have to do in this version, because that's what causes the cages to appear.
Are the cages harder to get overall in this?
I think they are. I mean, you saw right there, I had to go a little further out of my way to get that cage. And you'll see another couple of cage locations that are a little trickier in this version. So here I am fighting the first mosquito boss, and you'll notice the background is different, and we're hearing the boss music instead of the normal music.
This is really good music too.
Yeah, I love the boss music in this game. Pretty much all of the bosses, but Scops is my favorite.
I find that the Rayman series has overall really good music, though the boss musics are definitely among the best.
Yep, and here's another cage that they moved for this version.
I remember finding that one very frustrating to get.
Once you know where it is, then it's pretty easy. But that's the case with most of the cages. They're just hard to find, not quite as hard to get. I probably should have gone onto the Swamp of Forgetfulness here so you could hear Terezan's voice line, but I really, really wanted to show you what's changed in Bongo Hills.
It's actually hills now.
Yeah, looks nothing like the Bandland that we've seen.
I like it.
As far as I know, this is the only part of the level that's actually changed. I don't remember whether that 6th area is in this version of it, and I didn't get far enough to find out, but those are parts from the PlayStation version that I just didn't remember being in the PC version, and as you can see here, at least the first level isn't in the PC version. And this is much, much easier.
Looks nicer too.
Yeah, that might just be the graphical quality difference between the two games.
I suppose.
But it's a much nicer introduction to Bandland. It gets just as hard as you saw before immediately after this, but at the very least you're not dying right there in the first area.
It feels much more like an introduction than the PlayStation version does.
Yeah, and it's just nice to see that at least once they changed something to make it easier in this version.
Proof that Ubisoft doesn't hate you completely, just mostly.
It's probably a good way to end the thread on a thought like that.
I also like that little musical bar there. It's a very nice little touch, complete with treble clef.
You notice that the game is running really fast at this point. That's what normally happens when I try to run this game. There's no way to keep up with it.
So it wasn't an editing thing?
Nope, that's how the game actually runs. For some reason, even though the frequency is set to 60 frames per second in the options, after I lose a life, or finish a scene, or pretty much anything, it jumps up to max. And max on this computer is a heck of a lot faster than it was back when this game came out.
I can imagine.
And having to do that at every single scene just was not viable for doing an LP recording.
Especially for a game where you are likely to die as much as this.
Yeah, so this is as far as I managed to make it to do the comparison video. Figured I'd show you guys what's down here where the cage used to be.
Is it just me, or has the music changed overall too? The tune sounds the same, but the instrumentation sounds different.
I honestly can't tell, but it wouldn't surprise me if it actually was. I mean, you're talking Red Book audio from a CD rather than from PlayStation.
It could just be a different quality too.
Yeah, it could be, better music technology. But here we are, Candy Chateau, Mr. Dark's Dare, the final level.
Ominous.
Yep, and we're gonna get off to a great start here. First death about 4.5 seconds in.
Slamming into chocolate at terminal velocity. I could think of worse ways to go.
I suppose so, I'm trying not to.
And not doing a great job.
Yeah, well, there's just more bottomless pits in this level than I would really like to see. And I managed to find ways to fall into almost all of them.
This is the last level, so I imagine they would throw everything they had at you.
Pretty much. They definitely went all out with coming up with new gimmicks. And you might notice I'm kind of stuck here. I was beginning to think I might actually have to reset the game at this point, but I managed to work my way far enough up the hill to die. In case you can't tell, momentum is really important at this stage.
I can see that, compared to most games with a sliding section where it just sends you forward, it actually has some physics.
Yep. So you've got to actually ride down the downhills in order to pick up momentum, and try not to ride up the uphills because you'll lose it.
And die.
And just get stuck going back and forth for a while. We'll be seeing that particular death a lot.
How many times was this?
I think I managed to fall down that first gap 6 times.
So the people in the thread who guessed around 30 guessed that.
Well, it would have been kind of hard for me to lose 30 lives in that same pit and still manage to beat the level at all. But this is the run where I finally figured out that you don't actually have to jump over all of the gaps. But you do have to jump over some.
Well, it wouldn't be very hard if you didn't have to jump.
Yeah, if you didn't ever have to jump, but you have to know when to jump and when not to.
And that's when you have to.
I don't think I even had a chance. I think I managed to jump over the crest of the hill that time and never touch down again until I was dead.
Ouch. Well, at least Rayman looks like he's having fun.
Yeah, that's true. He's always got that same happy smile on his face there.
Whenever he's not actually being hurt, he is happy.
Yeah, or falling to his death.
I noticed it most in Pencil Pentathlon when you're on the bouncy erasers. He just got that look of joy on his face.
Like, yeah, I'm going nowhere, and I love it. And then he gets stuck again. Except this time I'm a lot farther from the edge. So, I don't care at this point whether I kill myself or manage to get further down the slope, but here's a pro tip for you. If you get stuck, jump and face left, and then walk to the right, and you'll slowly manage to get to the edge. You've got no momentum, but at least you can continue in the level and die.
And somehow drown through it. So where did you get the pan? Did you steal it off one of those guys in Picture City?
That's a good question. I don't know, and I'm dying earlier and earlier in the level every time.
And making sure we see everyone.
Yep, I didn't cut a single death out of the video. Because everybody loves watching my first attempt. And I think this is the run that shows that even when you think you've mastered the whole momentum thing, it'll still bite you.
So, how many times have you died now? Many?
I have now lost half of the lives I started this level with, and I have not made any progress.
I'm guessing there is no checkpoints in the middle of the stage, just all or nothing?
Yep. Yeah, there are checkpoints later in the level, but this stage, obviously, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, and there we go, I just jumped extraneously and missed a downhill. But it doesn't matter, because I'm finally done. All you have to do is know that those butter lakes are coming up, and they're not too hard to jump over.
Just one last thing to throw at you.
Yep, and here's our second gimmick. Mr. Dark himself appears and creates an evil clone of Rayman. And the evil clone manages to follow your movements exactly, just a couple seconds behind. And if he touches you at all, you die.
That could get annoying.
Yep. But fortunately, this gimmick I remembered from my playing the PC version many years ago. So I knew it was coming and was prepared for it.
It's got very sparse music.
Yeah, this particular track is pretty quiet at this point. Especially if I'm jumping right on his head.
I see that he dies too.
Well, he does. You know, I died, so he's got to die. But his purpose has been fulfilled.
Is he anti-Meta Rayman or something, cancelling each other out?
Yep. And of course, you still got to watch out for those environmental hazards.
At least you get to watch him chase you into death.
Yep, he follows every movement. And then I follow him. And he follows me. So the trick is that you can afford to take your time as long as you're not actually standing still. Since if you're walking, he's walking. If you run, he's going to run.
I imagine until you realise that it'd be an easy gimmick to fall for, seeing as you would see him chasing and think you need to move fast, which results in him moving fast, and you get the idea.
Yeah, hopefully you've got your eye on him at least enough to notice that, you know, he grabs all the same ledges and slips in all the same places. If you stand still, he'll stand still when he gets to that spot. And I love the way the jumps are synchronized here.
I like the drum beat. Makes it feel like a chase.
Yep, and I think this music may be exclusive to this area. Like, the music for each of these scenes only exists in that scene. And I missed a Gold Fist power-up back there, but fat lot of good it does me here. You can't punch him to death.
It would be a rather mean touch if touching with your fists also killed you, but I doubt they'd do that.
Yeah, I don't think so. I didn't even try it, because I knew it wouldn't work.
That was a rather close one.
Yeah. I'm just glad that they put something down there for me to land on. I mean, again, no checkpoints here. I have to start over from the very beginning after I got to the very end.
It was rather funny watching your character just stop and think, why is there no end here?
Yep. Well, I remembered that you had to make the end appear. And once you know that that happens, it's not that hard to get to it. I just screwed up and ran right into his feet. So now Mr. Dark has actually placed a curse on Rayman himself. The rest of this level looks like it's really easy, but my horizontal controls are reversed. You can see the swirling stars around Rayman's head. And yes, we've got evil clowns dropping bombs.
Further proof that all clowns are evil.
Yeah, I suppose so. Not really sure what clowns are doing in a food-themed level.
Especially ink clowns.
Or what the heck that guy was at all.
What's a platforming game without a section where the controls are reversed? Pretty much
Easier?
every platform game.
I don't
Where's the
know.
fun in that?
A lot of early ones didn't.
Most ones that I've seen have at least one little section where you do.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty used to this from playing games like Earthbound and Secret of Mana, where they would periodically reverse your controls or screw around with them some other way.
I imagine that it wouldn't be as bad in a game like Earthbound, seeing as it's less based on timing and reflexes.
Yeah, and the only real problem with that is that you're also confused in every battle, so every turn you have a small chance of screwing up and punching yourself in the face.
So it's the Pokemon school of confusion.
Yeah, it's, I think it's got a similar mechanic. Anyway, the trick here is to really take your time and think about every movement you make, because unless you're consciously thinking about it, you're not going to move in the direction you expect most of the time. And I think it's just going from walking to jumping for some reason. You know, after I've started walking, it takes me a couple seconds to think, okay, if I want to jump in the same direction, I gotta press in the same direction, which is the opposite of the way I want to jump.
That could get annoying.
Yeah, it's kind of a test of, I guess, one or the other half of your brain working in a way that it's not used to. And I'm sure most of the people watching this are at least kind of familiar with the phenomenon. But it's just a really easy section.
Made annoying.
Yeah, except for the fact that you're moving in the opposite direction of the way you press. And then we gotta do moving elevators with reversed controls.
Fun, fun, fun.
The good news is that they do give us checkpoints at various portions in this scene because, well, it's a really long scene, and having to redo this one from scratch every time would just be too much.
So this is the last scene, I'm guessing?
Yep, final boss is right at the end of this one. Except we have to do slippery ledges now, with reversed controls.
They're really pulling out all the stops.
Absolutely everything they can throw at you, new and old.
Well, you kind of expect them to at this point.
Yeah, I certainly wasn't hoping for an easy time. And I don't know how I managed to make that jump when I didn't even jump until I was off the ledge, but my controls are back to normal.
And your face is no longer sparkly.
And there's a checkpoint. And now I am not running. Nor am I pressing to the right.
Yes, you are.
The second curse makes you run uncontrollably to the right, and all you can do is jump.
Imagine that if you weren't expecting that, that would really throw you off and make you panic.
Yeah, well the good news is that there was a checkpoint right before it starts, so you would be expecting it the second time. And now, of course, I'm frantically mashing the punch button. Nothing happens.
So you've been disarmed. That could be a problem, especially seeing as you're about to go against the boss.
Exactly. But he does at least give us our fist back.
Or not.
If we can catch it.
That's just cruel.
Yeah, he's taunting me. And now it's just permanently out of reach, and I can only dodge the stuff he shoots at me. Which is really hard, because these flame pillars will still damage you if you're in your invulnerability frames.
Now that's just Mr. Dark being cheap.
Exactly. Yeah, I lost 2 hit points there from 1 hit, basically. And you just dread making a mistake here, because, you know, the actual fight is still to come. And I've only got 1 hit point left.
That doesn't look good.
Nope, I'm doomed. Because now the flames are closing in.
He just stops playing with you.
Yep, but fortunately the Electoons are here to save the day. And now I can fight for real.
Did you have to control yourself at that point and jump to avoid the flame?
Yep, you have to jump up and grab the fist before you die. And now we have to fight a strange, mutt-like character of Mr. Scop's head and claw with Mr. Stone's body.
So he's created abominations.
Yep, and if you watch those stained glass windows in the background, they'll light up to show you which bosses you're fighting at this point.
It's a clever little gimmick.
Yep, I didn't notice it until I was editing the video, so I figured I'd better point that out. So I think I've almost got his pattern now. Just have to jump up, punch, and hit the helicopter in that order.
And once again, Ubisoft has continued the tradition of really good boss music.
Oh yes. This is possibly the best one in the game, although I still think Scop's is better.
Possibly a toss-up between the two.
Yep. So next, you've got to fight a pair of Space Mama heads on mosquito bodies.
With Space Mama rolling pin rifles.
Yep. Now the good news is that they can hurt each other with those shots. But most of the time they won't. And they do share a hit point meter. They just are shooting at you from both sides, and it's really hard to dodge. And every time you die, you gotta fight the first boss again.
I just noticed that when the shots hit each other, they fall down.
Yep, they'll cancel each other out most of the time. I don't know if it'll still hit you while they're falling, and I really didn't want to find out.
I don't blame you.
But at some point, I do have to figure out a pattern so that I can beat them. Another interesting thing you might notice about this boss music, it does play during the opening cutscene if you listen carefully.
Really? I didn't remember that.
Yeah, I think that's at the part where you see the Electoons in the cage.
So, does that mean it's basically Mr. Dark's theme?
I think so. At least that's what I call it, but I don't know of the soundtrack actually having any official names for the tracks. So I think I finally got the pattern here.
Sounds like it would suit him well. It's a good final villain theme.
Yep. And hey, it's the third boss. Mosquito's head on Space Mama's body, Mr. Sax's arms and legs, and Rayman shrinks when he appears.
So, it's a space Saxito?
I wasn't really planning to give it a name, but that one works. And I just got shot right in the face. And just to remind everybody, I still have to fight this guy again every time I lose a life.
Well, at least you've got something nice to listen to in the meantime.
Definitely. And once you've got his pattern down, it's just a matter of getting the timing exactly right. You jump a little too soon and he'll just block your shot, jump too late, and obviously you get a claw in the face.
Doesn't look like any of this boss's incarnations have particularly complex patterns.
Yeah, it's mostly just the Space Mamas because they react so much more to what you do than any of the other bosses. And the best pattern I found was to jump up and let them shoot under you, where you're really trusting them not to wait until you're in front of them to shoot.
And hope that they don't fire at the ground level.
Yeah. So this guy, I noticed that whenever he lands, I go flying up in the air, and that's a good time to punch him in the face. And you just have to have perfect timing to run under him without getting squashed.
So did Mr. Sachs actually murder the bosses and take them apart to make these?
Well, Rayman is the one who defeated them.
Well, he never actually killed them though, well, most of them at least.
Yeah, well they did get up and dance again, but...
Except for Mr. Scott.
Right, but they were still in pieces. I guess he just repurposed them. And that's it. That's the end of the game.
You've done it. You've saved the world!
You never actually fight Mr. Dark.
There was sort of a fight with him at the beginning.
A little bit. I mean, you were just dodging stuff. You never actually attacked him. And then we get a little musical interlude before the credits, where we get to revisit some of the enemies we fought and see what they're up to now.
Oh, I think I figured out where the giant blots come from. It's the squishy flower. On the clown on the bottom.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. And of course we get to hear the music from the river scene on Eat at Joe's.
The most relaxing music in the game for quite possibly the most infamous section of the game.
Yeah, it's, they could have made it a lot more tense with different music there, but, wait, is it Space Mama in a tablecloth?
Is she doing theatre, I think, maybe? Because that seems to be her thing.
I hope so. I really don't want to think about what else she could be doing there. But yeah, I remember hearing this song on the soundtrack and realizing that it had to be ending credit theme, but I didn't realize that they would actually use it in the game. So, I think maybe in the PC version they don't use this music there. Can't remember though.
See you soon.
Yeah, perhaps so. Because they boot us right back to the title screen. And there's a little bit left to do. Unfortunately, it has auto-saved over my file.
So you can't play the last level again.
Never again, unless I go through the whole rest of the game, or had the foresight to copy my file before.
You'd have to copy it every time.
Yep. And here's what happens if you try to play the level again.
Half at Rayman's place.
Yep, for all of about 3 seconds before it goes right back to the credits.
So they make you watch the credits again, for just that.
Yeah, I think I shut off the system at that point. But I wanted to revisit Crystal Palace, because I said that there was a secret over here to the left I didn't care about, and also that the Ting Magician didn't appear in the Cave of Scops, so time to eat my words on both fronts, I suppose. But it does give us a chance to end the LP with the Ting Magician's game. The final iteration.
As easy as the rest of them?
About that. It's tricky, and if you screw up once, you're probably not going to win.
A fun little minigame though.
Yeah, it is, and the Tings here are just really spread out. But fortunately, I'm good at grappling.
You've had lots of practice.
Yep.
I suppose it's fair enough that the Caves of Scops Ting Magician is the one which has grappling.
Yeah, that does make sense. And of course, there's barely enough time to finish. I think it was already fading to black when I got the last Ting.
Close one. And that was even when you did it perfectly.
Yeah, I don't think it can be done any closer. So there's one more thing that we haven't seen yet. What happens if I lose all my lives? Because I really thought it was going to happen at some point, and it just never did.
Guess you're too good.
Now, in the PC version, there's a timer here to show you exactly how long you have to hit the button, and then Rayman will cartwheel over to the continue side. But I didn't think it was going to end as soon as it does. So, I didn't get to show you guys that, but still.
Well, at least you got to end the game on a game over.
I think every LP should end on a game over. Just seems like common courtesy. But there you have it. That was Rayman.
Good game.
Yeah, I really like it. As challenging as it is, it's still a lot of fun to play.
I really like games which manage to find the right balance between ridiculously difficult but also really fun.
Yeah, I think games like Super Meat Boy and VVVVVV that give you a lot of checkpoints, so they're really hard parts, but you get to try them as many times as you want in rapid succession until you can beat them.
Yes, it is something that I like in games, as long as they're still fun as well.
Yeah, and this one definitely was. There may have been a couple moments where I wish they'd scaled down the difficulty a little, but it's still a lot of fun, just standard 2D platforming, run, jump, fly.
Well, it's simple, but it works.
Yep, and I'd like to thank again you and all the other people who've guested in the videos, everybody who watched, everybody who commented. You guys really made this LP what it was.
And what it was a good LP.
Thank you. Everybody just enjoy the background that went by too quickly to see in the game, and I'll see you all next time.